Best of r/malicious compliance episode 102. Subscribe for edit videos daily. Apologies in advance for the formatting. I'm on mobile and currently in between stops. I am a 24-year-old man living in the South. I used to work for a construction company that was extremely into micromanaging and breathing down your back at every opportunity. I worked there for almost 7 years before getting my CDL and leaving for better opportunities. I am currently about a month into my new job delivering lumber and cabinet parts around the area I live in. It's been really nice work so far because nobody is breathing down my back, and as long as the work that I am assigned to gets done, nobody has any complaints. When I first started this job, I knew that it was going to be kind of labor intensive due to the heavy things that I haul around. So when I went on my first solo run, I talked to my dispatcher to make absolutely certain what my responsibilities were in regards to removing the cargo from the truck. I was told that it is my responsibility to get the cargo to the edge of the truck where the customer will be able to unload it. I can help as much as I feel like helping and will still be covered by company insurance policies and the whole bodily harm type stuff that comes with that kind of work, but I am not obligated to unload at all unless I feel like it. Here is where my malicious compliance comes in. It started last week. Weenie was dropping off a large pack of lumber in a small industrial park. I walks into the customer's shop, introduced myself as the driver for the company and told him I had a load for him. He immediately began telling me that the plyboard goes here and the other larger skinnier born slight 2x4s and 2x6s go next door in this little shop area that he had set up specifically for storing his lumber. I politely asked if he had a forklift because the pack of lumber I was delivering was about 30 sheets of plywood, which is pretty labor intensive to unload. He looked at me funny and then laughed at me dismissively, telling me that no, of course he doesn't have a forklift. Thankfully, one of the other people that operates out of this particular industrial complex was out and about on their forklift, and I politely asked him for his help unloading this customer's lumber, to which he agreed and we got it all stacked up. She signed the paperwork and I left, not really thinking anything about it other than how rude the man was. Fast forward to today and the rude man is my second stop. He has ordered a fair amount of plywood as well as about 15 or 21x6s that are all very rough cut, meaning that they have splinters and everything just sticking off of them, so he can sand it down to his liking. I walk in his shop, tell him where I am from and who I work for, and she begins telling me where all of his lumber is going to be placed. I immediately had my suspicions confirmed from the last time that he expects me to unload approximately 1,000 pounds of lumber by myself as well as place it wherever he wants for him. I decide to take a little walk around the industrial complex to see if I can find the guy with the forklift, and fortunately I do. This wonderful man helps me unload all of this lumber and set it down where the customer designates. The customer then asks me if I have snips to cut the metal bands finding the pack together with. I tell him no, I do not, so he grabs a pair from his shelf and cuts the band off. He then apologizes to the man that owns the forklift and tells him we shouldn't be needing him anymore, and then looks to me and says, "Okay, you know where it all goes." Now I am perfectly fine with helping people unload if need be, especially if they are being nice to me. All this man has done is laugh derisively and demand things from me in the 20 minutes that I have ever been in his presence. I tell him, "So I hate to be the one to have to tell you this, but it is not my responsibility to sort your lumber, nor is it my responsibility to unload it." The man gives me a confused yet angry look, like somebody that has had a dog turd fired at them out of a slingshot and they haven't realized it's going to get them square in the face. He immediately turns hostile and tells me that I am the only driver that has ever refused to help him, and he will now be getting his deliveries on Wednesday instead of Friday. He then angrily writes me a check and hands it over to me without ever even attempting to look me in the eyes. I asked him to let me clarify and then tell him that I have no problem helping people unload, but I will not unload such a large load by myself. He shoves the check into my hand, tells me, "Whatever, just go." I imagine I will be hearing about this later on after I get back to my shop. But honestly, I now cannot wait for Wednesday just to see the look on the man's face when he realizes that you stuck with me and he, to his horror, may have to unload his lumber by himself for the first time in 20 years. Edit. Spelling mistakes and clarifying. I will follow up on this after my next delivery with him. Edit 2. For those telling me to tell my supervisor, I just talked to him at the shop and he says he is absolutely on my side, so I am not worried in the slightest. Thank you. Next. Originally posted on Webster but blocked due some no revenge stories rule. I usually do computer repairs at home and, usually at a much cheaper price than at any store. One day, a girl from outside the parish where I live calls me, saying that one of my contacts gave her mine and that she had a laptop computer to repair. I told her to bring the laptop and I'll see what I can do. Turns out, the repair is way too expensive, even to my standards, because of its age, and early 2000s neck, so I suggest handing her the laptop, disassembled and catalogued with the prices of each part, so she can make some profit from that dead laptop on OLX, like the Craigslist from the USA. He says no. Thank you. Next. So this is a continuation of my first post. Did you bring food for everyone? PTI. TL. Doctor of PTI got called out by a teacher for eating in class. Teacher unwittingly agreed that I can bring food if I bring enough for everyone. So I have a buddy bring 3 large pizzas to the window of my classroom in full pizza delivery garb. Cue impromptu pizza party. TL. Doctor for this story at the bottom. So, a little background. This takes place junior year of high school in a college credit English/history class. That's both of those classes mashed together back to back. First half of the class is, primarily, taught by English teacher. The second half of the class is, primarily, taught by history teacher. English teacher is endlessly amused by my shenanigans. She's younger and has a lot of fun teaching. History teacher is a bit older and more rigid/formal in his teaching style. I enjoy messing with both of them immensely because I was an obnoxious little shit back then. On to the story. After the events of the impromptu pizza party I initiated, English teacher walks up to me after class. English teacher Jesus, Bailey the nerd. That was hilarious. The look on history teacher's face was priceless. I don't think you could ever top that. Me is that a challenge? English teacher hahaha sure. Suddenly a look of deep contemplation comes onto her face. English teacher, maybe I shouldn't have made that a challenge. AWW, she knows me well enough to know that I take challenges personally and it is a point of pride that I demolish any task I'm told I can't do/am not up to. Me too late English teacher, the challenge has been made. Give me some time to think. Trust me, you'll be surprised. So, the stage has been set, the die has been cast. I just have to come up with a plan, set a date, and find accomplices. The plan my next class after lunch was Spanish class. I spent the whole period hatching my plan. If you want to spoil the reveal for yourself, the plan is, I'm going to need some materials for this plan. So, I borrow some props from my Spanish teacher for sombreros, and some maracas. I then go out and do some light shopping at the end of the day. The date in our class, obviously being a college credit class, there was a lot of reading. We were knee deep in reading some historical fiction that week, and nearly everyone has finished the assigned chapters, already the spark notes at least. Every week when the teachers were grading papers or just wanted everyone to be quiet for a bit, we'd have half a period of silent reading. This was my target. No lessons were being taught, and just about everyone was caught up on the book. The accomplices, I needed people that weren't shy in the spotlight and enjoyed a good prank. So, obviously I went to some band and theater buddies. It took some time, but I had managed to get people with the appropriate skill sets to enact my plan for co-conspirators. And with that, the plan is set, everything is in place. The day of the plan. The first half of the second part of the class is finished. It's officially silent reading time. I stand up. Me, English teacher, history teacher, class. I have an announcement. You may think it's silent reading time, but I must inform you that I have different plans. Loud western/mariachi trombone intro sounds from the hallway outside of class. In walks 3 of my co-conspirators, all wearing sombreros. One has a guitar, one has a trumpet, and one has a trombone. My 4th co-conspirator gets up from his seat in the class, dons a sombrero, and whips out maracas. They all walk into the dead center of the class, playing full-on mariachi music. Well, the one with the maracas is giving 110% on them, shaking them as vigorously as possible since he was the only non-musician I had enlisted. I laid out a full nacho bar in the middle of class, ground beef, cheese, lettuce, sour cream, salsa. Enough for 30 kids. English teacher's mouth is hanging open, eyes wide. History teacher's face is in his hands. What I can see of his face is bright red. Me. So, who's up for nachos? Once she regained her composure. English teacher, well, I'm not going to lie, that was pretty impressive, Bailey the nerd. Alright, everyone, grab a plate and get some nachos. The rest of the class was spent munching on nachos. The kids who formed my mariachi band were pardoned for skipping class, because it was truly a worthy cause. TL. Doctor teacher challenges me to prank the class in a bigger, more entertaining way than having pizza delivered through the window of my classroom. I respond by getting a mariachi band to interrupt class as I set up a nacho bar for everyone. Thank you. Next. Hey, long time lurker, and I finally remembered I had my own story. Hope it's formatted correctly. Background. This was during an unpaid internship at a construction company. I was an electrical engineer on site for a new mall opening in a high-end neighborhood. The company was responsible for the electrical and mechanical works of the entire mall and a few stores owned by the mall itself. This was close to the project's finish and most engineers have been moved off to other projects, so I was treated as a fully certified electrical engineering due to shortage of engineers and managed the entire ground floor, 2 stores and a team of 40 or so technicians. I only reported to my site manager and did not interact with any other firm or contractor. After the first 2 months, I had my company's, technicians and site managers' trust. I was even issued a checkbook. Unsure if that's its English translation. It's a billing form. Site engineers carry it around to issue repair, field change and other on-the-spot invoices because other contractors were on the site and they used to damage our fixtures, so we made them pay on the spot. Now onto the main story. Store's architect sends me a text at 10 AM. Baron, site manager gave me your number. Mall's project manager and I will be doing rounds on the ground floor and stores. Make sure the technicians have made progress. I text back, sure, let me know when you are here and I will give you the tour. We continue working according to my site manager's guidelines and my maps, and to be honest, we were ahead of the schedule. Around 15 PM, I hear the voice bellowing behind me. Mall's project manager, are you Baron? What are you doing to my mall? I turn back confused and see a man wearing a black suit with a jacket walking towards me quickly and the architect behind running as fast as she could. Me. Building it? Snarky, I know, but at the time I really was confused and that is what came out of me. Mall's project manager, no, you are most definitely not. How can you complete anything properly if you and your incompetent staff cannot even clean after yourselves? Do you need me to teach you how to wipe after yourselves too? Architect arriving out of breath, yes. Baron, this is unacceptable. The amount of dust and residue on the shelves is not acceptable. She had a I am sorry on her face, but clearly did not want me to fight. Mall's project manager, come with me to store name and bring your idiot technicians with you. I called 10 of my guys that were around me and we walked together. The mall's project manager and architect start talking in English, thinking I did not understand English. Thankfully my technicians did not. They are foreigners who only speak the native language, as I can only imagine what their reaction would have been. Mall's project manager in English, you need to run this ship more smoothly, Arch. You need to understand this is a master and slave relationship. Make them fear you and understand you're in charge. Architect turns red and pale, knowing I understand English. She tries to warn him, but we arrive at the shop and he cuts her off. He takes the most obnoxious walk into the store, put his finger on the shelf and passes it along, turns it towards my staff and I, all smug like and showing us a line of dust caused by metal works, ceiling wiring and drilling. My technician started sighing and mumbling, is he for real? He knows we're going to cut more, right? Mall's project manager in English, watch closely. Mall's project manager, listen Baron, you and your guys will clean after each cut and each thing you do in these 2 stores. I want to be able to see my reflection off of these shelves. I ought to charge you $20 just for cleaning that shelf. Something in me cracked and I pulled out my checkbook, wrote down cleaning a single shelf invoice for $20, signed it and had him sign it, took a $20 out of my pocket and gave it to him, making the entire transaction on the spot right there. He and the Arch walked off snickering. My technicians looked pissed. Me, you all have smartphones, right? Technicians, yes. Me, document everything you clean and send it to me. Later that week, I sent an invoice for 58 shelves between the two stores and front/back rooms, clean twice a day at 10 a.m. and 15 a.m. at $20 a pop. It totaled $2,320. Every bill we issue is overseen by the site manager, who called me in. Site manager: Baron, why are we charging them all a cleaning bill? I explained the story, showed him the invoice I paid out, and a folder on the company server showing my techs members cleaning. The site manager was furious. First, he hated the guy. Second, he has been working with those staff members for over 5 years now and did not like them being characterized as slaves. He approved it and sent it. The very next day, the mall's project manager, architect and what looked like an executive walked in demanding to see the site manager and called in our company's owner. I was not in on the meeting, but was outside. After lots of yelling and the trio furiously walked out. I was later told we no longer had to clean after ourselves until the entire work is finished, and I received exactly $2,320 as a bonus for my unpaid internship. All the technicians received a nice bonus pay for that week's work too. Their pay is weekly. Thank you. Next. So, before I became a stay-at-home mom, I worked for a casual fast food chain as a cashier. I loved my job there, even if it put me through the ringer on occasion. I had been an evening cashier there longer than any other cashier in that store. I knew the computer in and out. I knew closing lobby procedures like the back of my hand. I knew shift change. I knew how to help morning crew with lobby setup in the morning. I trained any cashier new to the store. This cashier, however, had been a transfer from our store across town. I was told she knew what she was doing. Every day, I would come in, see my store trashed, and then start my shift. She would promptly leave before doing anything. We had to fill our ice machine, clean tables, do a quick sweep, and take out garbages, including bathroom garbages, before shift change was considered done. Not hard, right? Talk to my boss about this. She told me to talk with my cashier. I did. She ignored me. I was told to then not let her leave until shift change was done. Okay. I would show up at 3:30, and nothing would be done. At our store, it was usually slow enough to get tasks done between customers. When I switched to mornings later, I realized just how simple morning cashiering was in comparison to what I did every night. But for some reason this cashier refused to do anything until I walked through the door. I started refusing to get on the drawer until I had completed every task shift change required. I would fill ice. I would take out garbages. I would wipe down tables, sweep floors, make sure my drink cooler was fully stocked, and that my drink station was completely clean and stocked before I would even suggest counting my drawer. One night, this particular cashier complained to me that she always had to leave an hour late. Whenever I came in to relieve her, I told her I wanted to be set up for my shift before I counted myself in. Then my boss pulled me aside and asked me why my morning cashier counterpart was always staying so late. They had to watch overtime, and she was frequently getting more than necessary. She told me she had received a complaint about me taking my time before getting on the drawl so she could go home. I laughed. I told her shift change was done, before I'll let her go home, just as my boss had told me to do. She would stand there and chat with co-workers and customers, or just groan and complain at me from across the room to hurry up. Did I mention there was a camera recording all of this? Apparently our patch manager was sending emails about unnecessary OT to my GM, and specifically called out morning cashiers, as my patch manager had actually run our store previous to my current GM, and knew what it took to have a clean lobby by 3:30, especially with sales being lower than when she worked there. When my GM realized that this cashier was literally sitting on her butt, while I did double the work, and was causing our patch manager to breath down her neck, she promptly had a talk with said rowdy individual. Things got better magically. It'd come in, and it wasn't perfect, but ice was usually filled, and my drink station was cleaned and stocked. At least my lobby garbages were taken out before I got there. No more OT or lazy cashier. Pretty mundane story, but I thought I'd share. Remembering this brought a smile to my face. I later got promoted up 2 ranks consecutively, managing entire shifts 6 months later. Patch manager took a liking to me, I guess. Thank you. Next. My mom's husband has been super strict about locking our doors and keeping them locked. I get that we don't want intruders coming into our house, but he has gotten ridiculous lately. I smoke cigarettes and go outside pretty often, so I hear make sure you lock the door behind you when you come in about 1,000,000 times a day. The fact that I do lock the door and still hear this every day has been very irritating. It has gotten to the point where I will step outside for 10 minutes to smoke, and when I come back, I'm locked out. This has happened more than a few times. Well, I've decided to finally take his words to heart, and I make sure our doors are always locked, no matter what time of day. He is coming back from work, better make sure the door is locked. He needs to take the garbage out, better make sure the door gets locked. Stepping outside for a phone call, let me get that door behind you. Edit. My mom's husband has still been checking to make sure the doors are locked, so nothing has changed there. I'm not really sure he has noticed my effort to beat him at his own game, and the battle continues. Thank you. Next. So a bit of background before I dive into the story. I am head of my department, and when the company wins a project, it comes to me for project review with current workload and time frame it is required. If I can't fit it in, then we send it out for a contractor to do. We are bought out by a multinational company after being locally owned, so as with all these situations, more and more scrutiny is now on budgets and meeting budgets thanks to the bean counters. To help comply with this, I am now told that I will be involved in job tendering, so that if we win the work, the budget should reflect our in-house hourly rate and allotted time I have worked out it should take. Only problem with this is that the tenderers also go out to contractors to get pricing also as a check, is what they are telling me. Fast forward to a meeting with my boss, and he basically tells me to run my department like a contractor, and if I can't meet the time or allotted budget for the job, to then pass it off to the contractor that has priced it as such, regardless of what is happening in-house, so that we don't blow the budget and have to explain why to the bean counters. Sure enough, as months go by, I don't get as involved in this pricing process as no one comes to me, and the contractor's pricing is what I am told I have to make work, which in some cases isn't too far off internal pricing, I would think, so I push my team and we get it done. Then one day the estimator comes to me with 2 jobs that he submitted pricing for and asks me if I can check the prices they used for my department's work. I have a look, and the combined price of the 2 jobs is less than what I believe one job should cost to do. Basically tell him, whoever the person that priced that must have been smoking some good stuff that day, and don't come to me if we win it, because I can't make it work and you are stuck with that contractor. About a month later, our internal workload is slowing right down to the point a few team members are booking time to training. This is just a code we book time to upskill, or basically if we have nothing to do work-wise we use as a filler when it comes to internal cleanup or whatever, so it just doesn't blow job budgets for unrelated items. I go to my boss asking for more work, basically as we don't have much going on, and I don't want him coming to me asking why so much training time is happening. His response is, we have these 2 new jobs, we have one just finalizing the contract and we'll pass them down for you to review. Okay, great, I think this will keep us busy for a short while. Couple days pass and I see the jobs come through and start looking at them. This is when I realize they were the jobs that had stupid budgets, and I could not make work at all without a big lecture at the end on how budgets were blown. So I pass on them like I was told and let that be that. Couple days later we have our management meeting and I inform the room we are pretty quiet, so if anyone has any work let me know, and I could see what we could do. To this my boss pipes up and goes, hey, I just gave you 2 good jobs, what happened to those? You should be on them. To this I say, well, you told me to look at jobs, and if I couldn't make the budgets work, to act like a contractor and pass on them. So I did just that, as the budgets were ridiculous. He went quiet and that was that. So my team kept throwing hours into training until something came along which we could make work. He worked out pretty fast that a blown budget was better than throwing money into training hours, as that came straight out of the company pocket, and he would have to explain to his higher ups why our department had a lot of training hours and not much productive hours.